And how we doing, everyone? It's Matthew here, call sign Victor Alpha 1 Mike Romeo Tango. And I think we do a little video, well, might not be a little, we'll maybe broken up into a few parts, but I think we're going to go through and upgrade the firmware on the FTM-300. There's 3 different parts to this that you have to upgrade, so depending on how long this takes, we may do it all in one video, or we'll break it up and do it into a few different ones. So we'll see what happens here. We'll see how we're doing on time, and we'll see how it goes. I did this once before on the FTM-300 I'm running in my truck. Came through a few snags, but hopefully I won't this time. But if I do, we'll definitely go through it together, and you'll see what I did to get around that. So first thing you want to do is head over to Yaesu, and you want to click on the FTM-300, and it'll bring up our summary of the FTM-300. And right above the top here, you see description, accessories, and files. We're going to want to click on files, and we're going to go down to the list here. And under amateur radio software, we have update firmware information and drivers. Depending on what part of the world you're in, there's 2 different firmware updates. So just a little disclaimer, I am not responsible for what happens to your rig if you choose the wrong firmware and you put the wrong firmware into your radio without consulting your manual and all the fine details that you have to go through. If you put the wrong firmware, depending on what country you're in, it could be bad. So they give you this update firmware information so you could make sure you have everything straight for what you want to do. But just a little disclosure, I am not responsible for what you have to do. This is just what I'm doing. And if you want to follow along, that's great, just to see what I have to do. But whatever you do, that's entirely on you. I am not responsible for if you put the wrong firmware into your radio and you brick your radio and you have to bring it back to Yaesu for them to fix it. So that's my little disclosure, and we'll continue on. I'm making this video just to show people what I did, how to upgrade the firmware, the steps I go through, and depending on where you're at and what steps you go through, that's entirely up to you. But this is what I do. So that's my little disclaimer. So anyway, we'll get back to her. We want to scroll down here to amateur radio software, and we see this update firmware information. Now I've already downloaded this, so I put it in a separate folder. But I made a folder on my desktop, FTM-300 update. And we're going to go down to the PDF you can download, and we'll bring that up, and we'll just go through it a little quickly here, see what happens. Okay, so here we are, FTM-300 DRD firmware update information. Refer to firmware update instructions manual in each zip file. So here we are, the latest versions are listed below. Main firmware version 1.4, sub version 1.2, DCP 7.1. Currently we have 2 different destination versions of the FTM-300, USA and EXP, including Europe and China. Please open the update instructions manual and review the information before starting to update firmware. Firmware version for Japan is different from USA or EXP version. Please check the latest firmware of the Japanese version on the Japan website. Okay. So depending on where you're at in the world, there's two different firmware updates back on the Yaesu website. You can see here FTM-300 EXP firmware update and FTM-300 USA firmware update. So let's see. DST USA version covers North and South America, Australia, and New Zealand. Folder name FTM-300D underscore USA underscore firmware underscore update 2021-07. So, and when we download the zip file, it'll give us these 3 zip files, I do believe. Now, if you want to download that zip file now and put it in a folder, you just head back over to the Yaesu website, and depending on what part of the world you're in, EXP or USA, since I'm in North America, up here in Canada, I have to use the USA firmware update. So this is the one I downloaded, and I've already put it into my FTM-300 update folder, which is right here. So let's go back to our little description here. DSP covers all countries. Folder name FTM 300 DSP version.zip. Okay, well that's pretty good. So the main, the sub, and the DSP. We're gonna start with the main, and we'll see how long it goes, and then we'll hop into the sub, and depending how that long goes, we'll do the DSP. But we'll see what happens here. See how long it takes us. Here's just talks about the firmware, and fixed a bug. Just talks about what it does to fix it. So, but before this, I know my radio, the first one I purchased, did not come with the latest updates. So I'm not sure now if they do or not. So let's just pop over to the radio, and we'll go through the steps to find the software version and see what we can find. So let's hop over to the radio, and we'll come back to this here in a minute. Okay, here we are over at the radio, and we're going to go through the menu here and find out what version our FTM-300 is at. So it's pretty easy to get to. We'll just press and hold the setup button. I'll get it to our setup menu. We click on display, and it's going to bring up the display menu, band scope, LCD brightness. And we want to go down to number 5 where it says software version. So we're going to go into that. And as you can see, this has the old software version. So the main version is 1.1, and the new version is 1.4. Sub version is 1.0 on the radio, and the new sub firmware version is 1.2. And the DSP version is 7.1 on the radio, and the new one is 7.11. So I think we'll upgrade this to the latest firmware. So let's head back over to the computer, and we'll start going through the steps and what we got to do. Okay, now that we checked out what software version we have running on the radio, as you can see, we have to do the upgrade. So we're gonna hop through the steps, and we'll work at the main version first, and we'll go on from there. So let's pop back over to Yaesu if you haven't already done it already. Back to the software version, and depending on where you're at in the world, like I said before, I'm in Canada, so I have to use the USA firmware update 2021. So remember, read the firmware information. I can't stress that enough. You don't want to put the wrong software into your radio. So I've already went ahead and downloaded the USA firmware update and put it into my FTM-300 update folder I made on my desktop. So let's go and unzip this guy. Close you. And we'll extract you to our folder we have on the desktop. Done. There we go. You can see it pop up here. Let's hop on here and see what's in here. Okay, so we have 3 more zip files, and we have some documentation here. Looks like we have the document for the DE main and sub, and then we have the DSP firmware manual. So let's go and we'll unzip our main first. I think that's going to want to come up every time. I'm using WinRAR just because it works pretty good for me, but whatever type of unzipping software you use, that's entirely up to you. So we'll open this up, we'll extract to, back to our FTM-300 update, into our update firmware folder, and you should be able to see your folder. You can also drag and drop, that works as well. So we'll close that. And just since we're unzipping these, I might as well just unzip them all. Close you, and I'll just show you here. Drag, drop. Yep, that works. There's our sub. Then we'll do the unzip the DSP. Now see, there's 2 different files here. There's FTM300D.com and PCToolE. So we'll just highlight those and we'll drag and drop. There. That works. Now let's open up our document here and kind of go through what we have to do. Just gonna close up my other one. FTM300DR/DE main and sub firmware update instructions manual. Excuse me. This application is a software tool for updating the firmware transceivers manufactured by Yaesu. Currently, there are 2 different destination versions, USA and EXP. You must check which version radio you have, and we've done that already, and use the correct update software. The destination is marked on the box serial number label. So if you don't have your box with you right now, or you still don't have it, I know I'm up here in Canada, so this is what I'm going to do, but definitely go and check your serial number. If you still have the box, check it out. We'll go from there. And then we have our main firmware and the sub, DST, USA, DST versions cover all countries. So yeah, that's our DST. That was that 3rd file we unzipped. Oh, sorry. Main firmware, DST version covers North and South America, Australia, and New Zealand. And sub firmware, okay, so the sub firmware covers all countries, but the main firmware itself, the USA version covers North and South America. Okay. Important notes, all responsibility for the use of the software lies with the customer. Yaesu cannot be held responsible in any way for any damages or losses which may be included by the customer as a result of using this software. Copyrights and all other intellectual property rights for the software as well as the software manual are the property of Yaesu. Revision, modification, reverse engineering, and decompiling of the software is prohibited. Download files may only be used for personal use. If you cannot perform the firmware upgrade yourself, please consult with one of the sales sites or service centers. So that's pretty good. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, definitely get a hold of the place that you purchased your radio from, and they'll probably do it for you. I've done this once before, so I'm comfortable doing it. But if you're not comfortable, by all means, have somebody else do it for you. There's no shame in that. Okay, so here we are, system requirements. For the computer, obviously since that's what we're using, Windows operating system, and USB data connection cable are required. So we are going to use that USB data connection cable that came with the radio when you first purchased it. It should be wrapped up in plastic. That is the only thing that cable is used for, is upgrading the firmware on the radio. If you want to program it, you need to use the SU20 cable, and check out my other videos for that. So let's go down our list. Hard disk, USB interface, cable, overview. Firmware. Update the firmware by the following procedure below. Note step 1 and 2 are required only once for the first time. Steps 1 and 2 are not necessary if the PC is already prepared. The PC was used to update the firmware of FT2D or FT3D proceed. So, preparing Microsoft.NET Framework 3.5 Service Pack, page 4. And install a USB driver and Microsoft Visual C++ 20 distribution, page 6. Okay, so I have already done this part, the preparing on Microsoft. It says I don't have to do it again, but let's just go down to page 4. It's the next one. And here it is here. There's the link that we'll provide to you. And it goes through all these, and it even gives you pictures of what you have to do when you're installing it. So I've already did that. I'm not going to do it again. But do this step first, read through this, and maybe your computer already has this and you don't have to do it. It'll probably already tell you. But if not, the web browser open and click the download button, then follow the on-screen instructions of the download. Do Netflix, blah, blah, blah. Execute the download. This guy, if the user account control screen appears, and click yes button. An app on your PC needs the following Windows feature, appears on the Windows feature screen. Click download and install. So just follow this, and you'll be all right. Let's go back up to our steps here. Number 2, install the USB driver. Now, whatever you do, do not plug in the USB cable into your radio first. You have to install the drivers first, then plug it in. If not, it's going to install the wrong drivers, and it's going to be a pain. I did that once by mistake, didn't realize it. Kind of a trick I did to get away with it. It worked for me. I just took the USB cable, unplugged it from the port I had it in on my computer, and I moved it to another port. So that'll work too, but if not, you may have to go and uninstall the driver, and it could be a bit of a headache. So let's just go down to page 6 and install a USB driver. So start the Yaesu firmware update to install a USB driver. After USB driver installation completes, install Microsoft Visual C++ 2008 redistributable. Ugh, butchered that word. The following procedure must be performed only when using installation application for the first time. When the USB driver is already installed on your computer, skip the following procedure. Okay. So there we are. So let's go and hop on into it. Let's go back up and check our steps. Update the main firmware. Let's go to page 12. Okay, so it looks like we're going to start off with number 1 here and get ready to rock and roll. Just like, and read this caution. After updating the main firmware version, reset all will be executed for the FTM-300. The reset will delete all saved data. So any memory you have saved in there, you may want to save it to the SD card or save a copy on your computer. If you want to know how to save all the memory from your PC, from your radio to your SD card, follow my other video I have on my channel, and that'll get you set up. So once you do that, get all your memories saved, come back here, and we'll be ready to rock. Okay, so let's go and open up this guy here, FTM-300 main. Go back to our folder, main version 14. And let's make these icons bigger. Just so we can see what's going on here. There we go. FTM-300 main. So I'm going to be popping back and forth, and we're just going to follow the on-screen instructions. But it gives us pictures here first. So it's going to tell us to double click. If the user account control screen appears, then click yes. The yes firmware update program starts. Click the update button. Update preparation procedure appears. Follow the on-screen instructions to make FTM-300D ready for update. Okay, so let's hop on over, and just gonna close these guys out. Don't need them up anymore, and we'll go through the on-screen instructions. Okay, so let's open this guy up. FTM-300. Click yes. All right, we'll see the Yaesu firmware update program. So first complete the communication environment setting, then press the update button. So what we want to do first is go and install the USB driver. Do not plug in your cable to the radio, because if you do, then it's going to install another driver and it's just going to give you a headache. What I've done before is I've moved my cable over to a different USB port on my computer, and I was able to get around it that way, because I did that mistake too. I went and I plugged it in, and it gave me a bit of havoc. So go to the USB driver install. If you want to know what that looks like, we can go over to our manual. I've already done it, so I'm not going to install it again. So the driver install screen appears, then click install. When updating the firmware of this model, the first time installing the USB driver is required before connecting the USB update device at the computer. Installing the driver is not required for the second and subsequent updates. Would you like to install the USB driver? So you're going to click install. It's going to probably ask you Windows security. Click install and USB driver loading. If the Windows security screen appears, click the install button. After a while, Microsoft Visual C++ 2008 I'm just going to butcher that word. Redistributable, setup screen appears. Click the next button. And we're going to get these screens here, and license terms you've read and agreed and all that stuff. So setup is complete. Return to the driver install screen of the Yaesu firmware update program. Click next. So I've already installed that stuff before, so we're going to just go to update. Now, before updating, make sure to follow the preparation procedure below. For details, refer to the PDF file. That's what we're doing. And disconnect the power cable from the main body. Okay, so let's just head on over to your radio, and you're going to disconnect the cable from the main body. I'm going to do that as well. I'm just going to pause this, do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, now that you have the power turned off to your radio, what we're going to want to do is the next step. It says switch the program switch to CPU update side right. So let's let's hop over to our radio, and I'm going to show you what has to be done. It's pretty quick and easy, so let's pop over there and see what we got to do. Okay, so here we are at the radio. This is the data jack, and you can see down below it says normal and update, and right inside, right here, there's a little tiny switch. We have to take and switch this guy over to update. So I'm going to try and do that right now. There. She just switched over. Don't force it. You'll feel it go over to update. I'm just using a very precision screwdriver. As you can see, it's not very big. The last time I did this, I used a toothpick. So whatever works for you to get that little guy over. So now let's head back over to our computer and keep going through the steps. Okay, now that we switched over on the main body of the radio over to update, now our next step is connect the FTM-300D to your PC using a cable. So take your cable, plug it into your radio, and then connect the power cable to the main body to supply power. So head on over and plug that in. I'm just going to get mine back up and running here. Okay, turn on my radio. Okay, after we connect the FTM-300 to the PC using the cable, connect the power cable to the main body, the power supply. After this part of the procedure, let's click the OK button. Now, one USB device found. As you can see, blah, 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 blah. It did find the radio, so we're going to click OK. And if you did everything right, you have the updating screen right here. Firmware update is complete. Okay. Now, let's check this out. The updated program has been transferred. Lastly, make sure you follow the procedure below. Disconnect the power cable from the main body. Disconnect the cable connected to the data terminal. Switch the program switch to normal operation mode to the left. So the opposite direction that you seen me do before. Connect the power cable to the main body to the supply power. Perform all reset, and we'll check the version number. Okay, so after we did all this, I'm just going to pause the video and I'm going to get set up again and we'll go through that. And we want to pause. Okay, so I just disconnected the power and I disconnected the cable from the radio. I went ahead and I switched the little switch we switched before that I showed you from update back to normal operation mode, so it goes back to the left. I connected my power cable back to the main body of the radio. I did not perform the all reset. We're going to hop over here now and we're going to go through that procedure. We'll show you, I'll turn the radio back on, video that, and we'll go and we'll check the version number. So let's pop over to the radio and check that out. Okay, here we are over the radio. Let's go and we'll turn it on. Press and hold our F setup button. We'll go display, software version, and there we go. Our main version is 1.4. Perfect. So, like it said over on the computer, we'll go and we'll do a main reset. So let's go back, and we'll go down here and we'll do the reset. This is factory reset. Reset OK. And we're resetting. Resetting complete. It'll probably shut off here. And it'll turn back on here in a second. There we go. So it's going to want us to put in our call sign again. I'm not sure if you really have to do this, but since we just re-flashed the firmware on our radio, we may as well just do what they say. I know it's a bit of an inconvenience, but when MRT, like we did before, all the information is saved on the SD card, everything we had before, so don't worry about if you lost anything. So, press and hold F setup, display, and we'll head down to number 5, software version, and main version is 1.4. Right on. So let's just pop back over to the computer. Okay, now we're back here over at the computer. We seen over at the radio that the update did go in, so we're just going to press OK. And that's it. It brings you back to this FTM-300D main. So after this, the next step is go and update the subversion. So I think we'll cover that in our next video. So definitely hop on over to that one and check that out. I want to thank you all for sitting with me through this and going through the install process. This took a little longer than I thought, but one of those things you don't want to rush. So hope you guys enjoyed, and hope you feel a little bit comfortable if you want to tackle this yourself like I did. So 73 for now. This is Victor Alpha 1, Mike Romeo Tango. Thanks for watching. And if you like this, drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks again, everyone. 73.